Thank you very much, Tina, and thank you to the senior class for your generosity for others. Our commencement speaker, the Reverend R. Paul Henrickson, is known by more students by first name than any other member of our community. In many ways, he was born to serve here as the Timothy L. Pickle Dean of the Chapel. Reverend Paul Henrickson moved here to Salem in his teenage years, moved here with his family where his father served at the Lutheran Children's Home of the South, the site of our current Elizabeth campus. Our own rocket scientist, Reverend Henrickson, graduated from Virginia Tech with a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering and a Master in Engineering and Mechanics, and then began a career as an aerospace engineer for NASA at the Johnson Spacecraft Center in Houston, where he worked in the mathematical modeling and was involved in the early stages of the Space Shuttle project. Reverend Henrickson earned a Master of Divinity from Hama Divinity School and has been an ordained Lutheran pastor since 1977. He was called by the Virginia Synod to come to Roanoke College in 1983 as associate chaplain and became the college chaplain in 1986. In 1996, Reverend Henrickson, or Rev. Paul, as he's known, was named Roanoke College's first Timothy L. Pickle Jr. and Timothy L. Pickle III Dean of the Chapel. Always seeking to serve others as part of his ministry, Reverend Henrickson developed Roanoke College's friendship with Habitat for Humanity. For over 20 years, he led students to work on Habitat for Humanity houses in Columbia, South Carolina. His work with the Roanoke College Habitat chapter has produced 16 Habitat houses in the Roanoke Valley. In 2006, Reverend Henrickson spearheaded the Our House project to have new students build a house on the Roanoke College campus in a matter of days as part of their orientation. This year we completed our 7th Our House for local residents. Our students working on the homes and families living in those Habitat homes have all been touched by Reverend Paul. Always a person who reaches out to others with compassion and sensitivity, he's a ubiquitous presence on campus, dining in the Commons, organizing service and relief projects, visiting with students and sitting among them at games, visiting in the hospital, sitting at Mac and Bob's over late-night breakfasts or early morning pig roasts. And to the best of my knowledge, he's the only person in the history of this college to have taught both religion and physics. Reverend Henrickson and his wife Jennifer are partners in the life of this college. Paul is retiring this summer after 30 distinguished years of service as our chaplain here. It is fitting that this Reverend, who has touched so many lives in this community, has an opportunity to address our commencement today. I'm also pleased to announce that we're creating the Reverend R. Paul Henrickson Community Service Endowment. Paul, Roanoke College is proud of your accomplishments, grateful for your influence on so many members of the class of 13, and we're excited for your time with us here this morning. Reverend Henrickson.
David Thoreau, in his essay, Life Without Principle, begins with these words: the greatest compliment I was ever paid was when someone asked me what I thought and listened to the answer. So it is with me today. I am deeply honored to be asked to speak to the graduating class of 2013. It's a special moment for me, and I give thanks for that. Give thanks to my friend Michael Maxey for believing in me. And I just want to take a moment to say thanks to my sister Judith, my brother Mark, my son Matthew, my daughter Sarah, and especially my wife Jennifer. These family members, like your family members, have been with you through all the changes and chances of your life, and they have been really, really, really patient with you, as these folks have been patient with me. This is a day of gratitude. Give thanks. Hug them. It's a day of hugs. Well, I do have to say you kind of disappointed me, class of 2013. Look at the predicament you got yourself into. Dutifully, you went to West Hall. Dutifully, you lined up in alphabetical order. Dutifully, you followed the person in front of you. Dutifully, at the direction of the faculty, you are now seated here. You're trapped. You're boxed in. You're corralled. I'm going to get away. You think you can run that way? Faculty. You think you can run that way or that way? Family and friends. If one of you moves, Uncle Bob out there and say, "Oh, get back in that seat!" And you're certainly not going to run this way. Honorary doctorates, Dean Smith, President Maxey, Chairman Kreger, and you know President Maxey with all the rights and privileges given to him by the Commonwealth of Virginia. So you've done it. You have done it. You are stuck. You are trapped. You cannot get out. Well, there is one. You will be led again. You will follow the person in front of you. You will walk up here, and you'll walk right to this point right here. You're still trapped when you're standing here. And then you'll hear your name spoken. You'll hear your name read out. And at that moment, you have a choice of whether you want to be free or not. Now, to my knowledge, nobody has ever turned back and said, "No, thanks, I think I'll have a couple more years." You've always heard their name and answered the call, and they've walked across here, and they received their diploma, this great act of freedom. All you're going to do is listen to your name being called. And you have to think that when you're walking across here, there are other people out there calling your name too. You have professors who are saying, "Yeah, I had them in class. They weren't very good at block one, but I had them in class." You know? And you have a grandmother out there somewhere and says, "Yeah, I changed his diaper when he was..." And you have your friends saying, "Boy, we had a great time, from Bob's to Dude's to Elrod's to Hawthorne to the Cleve to Chateau, the Plantation." You didn't think I knew about that, did you? Did you? The red roof, blue tarp. Your friends are thinking that. We had a great time, but they're also saying, if it was just, we got through seminar together. We got through together. We stayed up late, we wrote, we criticized, but we got through together. So while you're walking here and shaking hands, other people are saying your name to you. And then you get over here and you walk off, and well, that's it. You're free. You're free. You're out of the box. You're out of the corral. You're out of being boxed in. But there's more. Because right about right here, there's some other voices going to be calling to you. Some other voices that are going to be calling your name. A whole chorus, a whole symphony of voices. One says power. One says money. One says security. One says grad school. One says Marine, pilot, CEO, corner office. All these words coming out. One says 2.5 kids, picket fence, spouse that loves me in a 2-car garage. They are calling to you. All you have to do to walk from here to here was listen to one voice speaking your name. When you walk down this ramp, you have to listen to hundreds of voices. How are you going to decide? How are you going to decide? All these voices aren't friendly. Some of them will eat you alive. Some of them are bottomless pits that you simply can't fill up. So how are you going to decide? Well, I think commencement addresses are supposed to give advice. If you want advice, Google 10 best commencement addresses. You'll get Steve Jobs, you'll get Amy Poehler, you'll get David Foster Wallace, you'll get Colin Powell, you'll get Obama. I'm not into advice. I would rather tell you the truth. I'd rather tell you the truth that somewhere out there, your name is being called to something very special. It's called vocation. And for my money, and for when I exit this stage, that voice is going to be God calling me. In your life, it may be God. Or you may call it fortune, or fate, or karma, or something else, but there is a voice calling your name. And how will you figure it out? How will you decide and figure which voice to listen to? I take my lead from a freshman who is a rising sophomore now. His name is Griffin, and we would meet on Thursdays with a small group, and we'd talk about how we are called in life. And he used this phrase. A few weeks ago. He said, "You know you're doing what you're called to do when you feel most alive." When you feel most alive. I think that's the purpose of the liberal arts education, so you can distinguish what makes you feel most alive and what being most alive really feels like. That's what your calling is. That's what you're called to do. There was another student, she's a rising junior now, her name is Kelsey, and she went on a trip with Jesse Griffin to spring break trip to Nicaragua. And she went to Jesse's Peace Corps village, where he worked in the Peace Corps in Nicaragua. And when they came back, a small group of those students got together and were telling us what that was like. Kelsey didn't say a word. She was just sitting there, and I thought, well, she didn't have any fun at all, or wasn't there. And finally I said, "Kelsey, what about you?" And she said, "I slept on a dirt floor. I ate stuff that I'll never eat again. The bugs were terrible. I worked hard digging a latrine for the village. I was dead tired every day. It was the hardest week of my life, but I never felt more alive. I never felt more alive." That's how you listen to the voices that are calling you. When you can say to yourself, "This is something that I feel most alive doing." Don't worry about the money, it will come. The 2.5 kids in the garage and that stuff, that'll come. Do those things that make you feel most alive. You didn't take courses here. You didn't take a course at Business 215 that says how to create a mediocre business plan. You didn't take a course in physics that says how to get an almost approximate answer to orbital mechanics. You didn't take a course in sociology that says this is how you undershoot all your goals. You are called. You are called. Not from less than life, not from life to more than life, but from less than life to full life. That's what your calling is. Listen. Listen here. Listen here to what your call is. In the early 70s, my good friend Chip Gunston and I imagined that we were God's gift backpacking, and that we would go to New England in late summer, and we would hike the trails of New England, especially Baxter State Park. And then this one time we got off Route 16 in New Hampshire at a place called Pinkham Notch, and we climbed up Tuckerman Ravine. And most of the hike up there, you're above the tree line, and so the path is painted on rocks. And when you get to the top of Tuckerman Ravine, Mount Washington is up here, and the presidential range is down here. And you get up there, and there's the sign that says, if the weather is the least bit threatening, turn back now. People have died in every month of the year from weather-related disasters. Very encouraging. But we were God's gift to backpacking. So we went on. We were not a quarter of a mile in when the fog came, and it was so thick you could not see 5 feet in front of you. And you surely couldn't see in this boulder field where the next path marker was. And there we were. We stood at one, and we looked back and couldn't see anything. And we looked the other way, couldn't see anything. And so we sent each other out. I would say, Chip, Paul, Chip, Paul, Chip, Paul, Chip, I found it. Paul, come up, come up, come up. And we would go to the next rock. And we would do that, and do that, and do that, until we came to this destination, Lake of the Clouds Hop. If you've never been there, it's a terrific place. But it was one voice calling to the other that led us through this fog and this boulder field to a place that we needed to be. So it is with you. And so it is with me. I can say this, fellow seniors. As I told you the other night, the next time I say fellow seniors, it's going to be a much older audience than I say that. Fellow seniors, we graduate here together. I don't know how the Chief Marshal is going to lead us off this stage, but I'm going down that way, just like you. And I'm going to be listening, just like you, for the calling that comes next. To find out what depth of life I'm called into. My prayer for you this day is that you'll listen. You'll listen to the call that gives you fullness of life, and that you can say when you wake up in the morning, I'm fully alive today because of what I have been called into. It's time to break out, folks. It's time to get out of your captivity. You'll be led up here. Listen to your name being called. And then follow it wherever it might lead you. I give great thanks for 30 years here. I have great thanks for you all. You're the reason I come to work every day. You are the ones that give me fullness of life. And you very much for that. And I look forward to greeting you as graduates of Roanoke College. Thank you very much.